What's going on there, guys? My name is Matt, or Chewy as most of you will know me as, and welcome back to the iniBuilds Airbus A350. Today we're taking a break from the Dash 900 shown in the last two videos, and we're going to be conducting a full flight between London Heathrow and Nairobi in Kenya with British Airways today as BA Flight 65. We're down on the ground at the iniBuilds London Heathrow scenery, and we're in Golf X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Golf for the registration today, parked up on stand 563. The absolutely gorgeous aircraft that we've got in front of us is going to take us 8 hours down to Africa, so let's jump straight into the flight deck. We'll go and get this aircraft prepped for our departure out of London Heathrow. Into the flight deck then, and as you can see we're in a cold and dark state at the moment, which I don't think would be very commonly found by pilots. However, for the sake of this video, I thought it would be nice if you could see a full cold and dark startup of this aircraft from scratch. Just as a pre-note, this aircraft is still technically in pre-release, so if you do see any discrepancies, any bugs, any issues, please be aware that this aircraft is still being worked on before its public release, and this video will be made available before that public release. So there's a good chance that there might be updated versions of this before you folks get it into your hands as well. On top of that, I by no means claim to be an expert with this aircraft. I've done a little bit of playing around and testing with it, and I've been very lucky enough to have some help from the iniBuilds team. But if I do make any mistakes, anything out of order, please don't shout at me in the comments section. I don't by any means proclaim to be an expert. So let's go and jump into the captain's seat, and we'll go and start to get this aircraft turned on. First thing that we want to do actually is to go and have a look right at the top here at the battery voltage section. And we need to make sure that all four of the batteries, 1, 2 and the emergency 2 and 1 have all got over 25 volts. If not, we'd need to do a battery cycle which would last 45 minutes in the real aircraft. Luckily, we don't have to do that. They all look fine. So coming down to the overhead panel, we'll start with the batteries as always. So battery 1, battery 2, battery emerge 1, battery emerge 2, battery 2, and then the external power. And as you can hear, the aircraft starts to come to life now. So the screens will do their self-test. It looks like our OIS displays are already ready to go. In the real aircraft, they would take quite a few minutes, but we've got them set up nice and quickly today. So as the aircraft powers itself up, we'll go and do some more scans on the overhead panel for the moment. We'll go and have a look at the ADIRSs, the ADIRs, and we'll move the number 1 to nav, and the number 2 to nav, and finally the number 3 to nav, just to allow them a few minutes to align. We could go and do some more stuff on here, I guess, whilst we've got the time. Oxygen, crew supply can go on. We'll leave the fuel pumps until we've completed refueling today. We've already established external power. We could go and check if we needed to change anything with the air conditioning today, change the cockpit temperature if it was a cold or hot day. And then we've made sure that the cabin air selector is on Purser select, so the cabin crew can control that. Elsewise, external lighting, I think we just need the navigation lights on for now. Nothing else there. We'll go and put the no smoking signs to auto, the no mobile lights to auto. We'll go and arm the emergency exit lights as well. And we'll put the standby compass on as well. And then that should be good for now for the overhead panel. Let's go and continue down. You can see the screens have come to life a little bit more now. I'll go and select constraints on here. I'll also get the VOR needles up. If I was flying on VATSIM, I'd probably select traffic. We've also got weather and terrain, which we can do a little bit later. And I'll also go and select the same on here for now. I'm also going to move over to the ARC position on the EFIS panel. We'll go and get some weather information in a small while, but for now that's fine. We can go and check some initial information into the aircraft. We've got the aircraft status page, so we can go and make sure that we're the correct aircraft type, that we've got the correct engines today, any fuel penalties that we might have, a navigation database, or any other pilot stored elements if we needed to do anything there. But it looks all fine, and we'll clear the align IRS message. Coming down, we could also set up our radio panels now, turning on the VHF1. Could also make sure that we're on the squawk page on the right hand side. Also important to note that we've got the engine start switches off, the engine start switch back to normal there. We've not got the ground spoilers armed or the flaps retracted or anything like that. Parking brakes also set, which we can confirm with the actual handle itself, but most importantly on the upper eCam page that it shows parking brake on. Okay, we've got 6 minutes until we've got alignment of those IRSs, so I think now is a good time to start loading in our flight plan, which we do via the OIS here. So to start that, we'll go to the flight op status page, and I've already created my flight plan on SimBrief, and so I'll simply click SimBrief import. Here we go, we've got our flight details already available to us. BA Flight 65 from Heathrow to Nairobi in X-Ray Whiskey Bravo Golf. We could then, if we really wanted to, start to get things loaded in. We'll get rid of GSX for the moment. We can go and operate the jetways. And if there's anything else we wanted to do there, we could do as well. If we wanted to go to the load sheet page and start to get things loaded in, we can go and have a look at our zero fuel weight and our fuel today. And I'm going to double check this against the OFP, which we'll look at now. So it's estimating that we've got 191,192 for our zero fuel weight and about 57.5 tons of fuel coming on board with us for the 8-hour flight down to Nairobi today. Let's have a look at the OFP though and check this in full detail. Now I've not got this in the normal Cirrus BA format, but I'm sure that'll be absolutely fine. You can forgive me for that one, I'm sure. Let's have a quick look. So a BA65 Heathrow to Nairobi, all of those details are there. 191,192 for the zero fuel weight, and then we can double check the fuel, 57.5 today. You can see some more information about the flight. You can see our estimated takeoff weight today, as well as our estimated landing weight. Our cost index is in place. You can also see the step climbs that we've got. And here's the information about the flight itself. So a flight time of 8 hours and 14 minutes. That's going to use just shy of 50 tons of fuel. We're taking 57.5, so we should be absolutely fine with that. Departing out today, we're expecting runway 27 right on a Detling departure, so Detling to Foxtrot, and then expecting to arrive into Nairobi via Lotas today. So that is what we have got in store. I could go into more detail about the flight plan and really go into a crazy amount of information there, but I honestly think there's no point. So we'll head back to the load sheet page. I say there's no point. I think I'm worried about boring you. And we'll go and hit set zero fuel weight. And if we really wanted to now, we could call GSX and go and get GSX integration for the fueling and for the boarding as well, to be quite honest with you. We've got 24 tons of fuel on the board, on the aircraft at the moment. And if I did want to call GSX to come and do fueling, it would progressively fuel that to our SimBrief import level, as long as obviously you've got your SimBrief account linked in GSX. I'm not going to bother with that today. We're just going to set the fuel straight away. And you can see loading fuel complete on that page. And we've got 57.5 tons. So if passengers were coming on board the aircraft now, that would mean that we could put the seatbelt sign to the on position. Lovely. So we've had a very quick look at the flight plan. We've had a very quick look at the weight and balance loading today. Next thing that I'm going to have a look at is getting some weather. Now there's various different ways that we can do this in the aircraft. If you're flying on VATSIM and you're having a look on there for an ATIS, you can go to ATC.com and then D-ATIS, and we can put in our departure, EGLL. It will automatically pick this up, I believe, if you've got a flight plan inserted, but we've not done that yet. And then we can send a request and see if we get any sort of ATIS back from VATSIM. However, I don't think there's any air traffic control online at the time of me recording this, so that might not come through. So what I'll do is I'll head back to the init page, and then we'll go and bring up the default Microsoft Flight Simulator EFB. And if we have a look on here, we can go and find our ATIS. Okay, so we've got the weather tab, as you can see, and we've got the weather information. One thing to note here is that you might notice that we're not actually flying real time in the sim. I've set it to like a nice early morning 7 a.m. setup of the aircraft, just because I think the sim looks gorgeous at this time of day. However, the METAR is when I am recording it in real life. It's Saturday the 22nd of February, and it's 15:20 Zulu this was recorded. So the weather at London Heathrow, the wind's 250 degrees, 8 knots, variable from 220 to 280 degrees, scattered at 3,000 feet and at 3,800. The temperature is 14, dew point of 6, and the QNH 1015. So I'll press tab to get rid of that, and we'll go make sure that we've got the QNH set in. So there's 1015 set on both sides. Gorgeous. Right, let's start setting up the aircraft FMS, shall we? We're going to do a company flight request, and we'll get the flight plan loaded in. Okay, as you can see, the aircraft has now received the company flight plan, and just as I say that, we've also got GPS primary, so our displays are going to come to life now as the aircraft picks up our location, which is always very helpful. So we've received the company flight plan, and we'll just click insert. There we go. It instantly fills in everything from our flight plan already. Our flight number, Speedbird 65 today, Heathrow to Nairobi. Flight level 350 initially for our cruising altitude today. We've got all of our information of our econ for our modes there, and cost index as well. Nav accuracy being upgraded here, which is great. AOC route uplink, there we go. And of course GPS primary once more, so we'll get rid of all of those on the message list. And we can also go and make sure that we've got the company wind uplinked as well. And if we go into the wind page and then head to this section, you can see that we've got the winds for the climb. I'll double check the descents as well. There we go. So we've already got all of our wind information uplinked from the flight plan as well, which is really great. So we've got the initial information in place here, which is fine for the moment. What we can then do is go straight to the departure page, and I like to click on the cursor here. You can do this in other methods, but I like to click it on the screen. We're going to select 27 right for departure today, and as we already looked at the flight plan, we're on that Detling to Foxtrot, and we can go and insert that into place. There we go. We'll also move this right hand screen to the flight plan screen, and that's looking really nice. Back to init then in the bottom left. We've done the departure. Nav aids, I think we can leave as is for the moment. We're not too worried about that. Fuel and load, we've already got those things coming on. So all we need to do for this, which is really nice, is if I just move my view very slightly back here, click in the box, click enter, and then it's going to draw our zero fuel weight from the aircraft. It will automatically move the cursor over to the zero fuel weight CG box. So we just click enter again, and it's picked that up. And then as you can see, we've clicked enter once more to get the block fuel 57.5. The only thing that we now need to type in is our number of passengers, and this is really important, as highlighted during the last video, where depending on how many passengers you've got on board on the flight, the water levels will go down, as well as other things like the air conditioning will be set correctly for how many passengers you've got on board. So if we go and have a look back over here, we should be able to see, if I remember where it is, how many passengers. There we go, 348 passengers coming on board with us today. So we'll click in the box once more, select 348, and then go enter. Lovely. And so that's all in place. Now, fear not about the estimated fuel on board. I think we've not got step climbs and all sorts of things placed in there. So I'm sure it will be more than 2.2 tons on landing. We might get a warning about that, about minimum fuel at destination is lower than what our estimated is. We won't worry about that too much. And there you go. You can see our total flight plan. Okay, we can return off here, and we can also go and do our takeoff performance. I think we can go and do that now. And to do that, we'll head back to the OIS screen, and we'll go takeoff performance. Now, I think this display's a little bit bright, just with the exposure levels in the sim at the moment. So I'm going to bring the brightness down. Hopefully that looks a little bit better for you all. This is super simple to use once more. We'll go and select the departure first, and we'll sync it with the FMS. It's going to pick up that we're at Heathrow, and we've selected a 27 right departure, and it's got the length of the runway today. Now, we could change this, so if we were going to take an intersection departure, we could do that. We're just going to leave it though. We'll go and sync the weather that we had a look at a little bit earlier. It's at QNH. The runway condition is dry today. We don't need the anti-ice. Config 1 is fine. Air conditioning can be on, and we're happy with the flex takeoff. So now all we need to do is hit compute. There we go. We've got our takeoff information. So a V1 of 156, rotate is 159, and the V2 is 164 today. Flat 1 plus F takeoff and a flex of 53. We'll go and send this across to the FMS. And then once it's sent, you can see over here, we can double check this. Before we confirm these takeoff speeds, always good to double check. So 156, 159, 164, and a flex of 53. That's absolutely perfect. Packs on, anti-ice off, and there's the flap setting. So we will confirm the takeoff speeds. You'll also see here on the VSD display, we've now got a vertical profile below the aircraft. And so pretty much the aircraft is set up and ready to go. The only other thing that we really need to do in here that I can think of at this exact moment is to set up our step altitudes. So if we go to the flight plan page, and then there might be another way of doing this. This is just how I do it. I'm just going to click on an altitude restriction here, and you can see we've got step alts. You know what? I'm just going to bring the brightness of these displays down a little bit as well. There we go. That looks a little bit better, doesn't it? Cool. And so what we can do now is we can select our step altitude. So initially we're at 35,000 feet. And I've already consulted the flight plan and know that at waypoint Sabad, so Sierra, Alpha, Bravo, Alpha, Delta, enter. We are going to be stepping to flight level 370. So we'll select that in. And then if we go and have a look, we've got DASPA at flight level 390 as well. So we'll go and type that in. Just for ease, DASPA at flight level 390. Enter. Perfect. We can now go back to the temporary flight plan, insert that in, and then if we wanted to, we could go and have a look through the flight plan. We'll come back to the PFD, or sorry, to the captain's view. Go to the plan page. Now you can scroll individually using this scroll wheel here. So if I wanted to go through each and every single waypoint and scroll through it one by one, you can do so using this little scroll wheel. However, Airbus have kind of got a Boeingism in their A350 where you can actually go via the whole page. So if we zoom all the way out on the flight plan, we can literally just go via the page and double check things and check the routing all the way down. There we go. So there's LOTAS, which is the last waypoint before the arrival, and we've obviously not programmed an arrival in yet. So that looks fine to me. Next thing then for us is to go and start to set up the rest of the aircraft. First things first, we're going to go and select our altitude today. We're going to be climbing to 6,000 feet on the Detling 2 Foxtrot. And what I'll do now is I'll just pause the recording to go and bring up the charts and make sure we've got all the charts in. And I'll also zoom in on the navigation display so that you can see the airport layout on the ND here. Okay then, so let's have a look at this. Now, as spoken about during my last video, this is really cool because if you're in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, you're going to have free Lido and FAA charts. And those Lido charts can be used within the OIS, the EFB for the iniBuilds Airbus A350. If you prefer Navigraph charts, just in the options for the EFB, you can go and change that, but I'm going to use Lido today. So we're parked on stand 563, which is located just here, facing to the west on Terminal 5C at London Heathrow. We're going to push back facing north on Delta, second right on Alpha, all the way down towards Pluto, and then we'll most likely go Alpha 3 here, and for a full-length departure to 7 right. So that'll be the taxi. The SID itself is the Detling 2 Foxtrot. So it's straight out and then a left-hand turn. And eventually we will go... sorry, it's this direction, isn't it? Detling over here. So it's a swinging left-hand turn. And then on a radial of 136 inbound towards Epsom, above 4,000. And then heading out in the opposite direction to the east. You can see we've got a couple of altitude restrictions here. 5,000 or above, 6,000. And then Detling as well is also going to be 6,000 feet. So that's our initial climb. It's also our transition altitude today. I'm going to leave this chart in place because I think it looks pretty cool down here. And then I've also hopefully made it a little bit nicer in the flight deck now since I stopped the recording a moment ago. I've brought the brightness down on the display, so hopefully they don't look quite as overexposed now, as well as on the FCU and the EFIS. So of course you can customize all of that and you can change the brightness levels as you so desire depending on your time of day. I've also zoomed in on the map here so you can see where we're parked. As noted, Terminal 5C on stand 563. There's Charlie, there's Bravo, so we're on Delta behind us. We're pretty much ready to go. I'm going to go and start the APU, and then we'll go and call GSX and get ready for pushback. One thing to note with this is that unlike the earlier Airbus models like the A320, you don't need to wait a few seconds between clicking the master switch and the start button. There is a reason for that. I have been told it, but I'll be quite honest with you, I've forgotten it. So APU master switch, straight away with the start switch. And we'll go and have a look outside and go and enjoy the APU startup, shall we? Okay, so just a snippet there with the APU. If we come back inside, we can see on the eCam display here that we've got the APU spooling up. So whilst that does its thing, we're going to get ready with the flight plan page. Let's move it all the way back to the top. You can see that it mirrors it on both displays there. And I'm going to have this display on perf, which of course we can select there. We'll do a checklist in just a moment, but what we'll do first is we'll go and get GSX ready to go for push and start once the APU is available. So there it is, APU is available. So we'll stick it onto the APU bleed now. And then before we do the power handover switch. Now, I believe in real life what you would sometimes see here is that once the APU bleed, the generators are running, the external one power isn't actually providing electrical power, something like that to the aircraft. I did see a video on this. So I think what some operators would do is they would actually disconnect the external one GPU now whilst the APU's on. But to be honest with you, we're pretty much ready to go. So let's go make sure we've got the fuel pumps on, as they're rather important. The external power 2 can go off now. All happy with everything else. We're going to select the beacon lights to on. And then we'll head down to the serve page, which is there. This is how you control your transponder and everything. And what a lot of airlines do, they would just go to serve in the bottom right, default settings, and then click confirm. Now you'll notice that it's got TARA there, and we've got TA only down here. Obviously, you know, on the ground in some countries like the USA, they might have the TCAS on and TARA. If you want to control this, there's actually a button back here. So can you see how there's a TA only button? And that's actually changed that here. So now we would be squawking mode Charlie, so the air traffic controllers would see us on their radar, but we wouldn't have TARA on. And that's all you need to do with the TCAS pretty much. I mean, you can mess around with it more if you wanted to, but really there's no point. So we can go back to the perf screen. Right, I'm going to call GSX and get them in position. So prepare for pushback and departure. And then we can get this show on the road. One thing that we've not done yet is the before start checklist, so we'll make sure that we do that. And hopefully I've not forgotten something. If I have forgotten something, please forgive me. As I say, I am by no means a self-proclaimed expert with this aircraft. I'm just going to try and do my best. Okay, so whilst GSX gets prepared for the departure, we'll go and do our before start checklist. So gear pins and covers, we'll just make sure that everything's removed from here on the ground screen, which by the looks of things it has. The GPU's gone as well. So gear pins and covers have been removed. Fuel quantity, we've double checked against the flight plan, 57.4 tons. Takeoff data, we've set that. Baro ref, it's 1015 set on both displays. You can see that it's automatic here, so the seatbelt sign position is on and the ADIRS and nav, it's already read that. Doors are closed, we can confirm that here. And the parking brake is set, ready for pushback. It's going to ask us what direction we want to push now, so facing north on taxiway Delta. GSX is ready to go, and now that we've completed the before start checklist, we don't actually need to do anything here. Automatically moves us back to the last page we were on, which means that we are ready to get this flight underway. So I am going to release the parking brake. And then GSX has given us permission to start the engines. You can start in whatever order you like. It doesn't matter whether you start engine 1 or engine 2 first. I don't know if you can do them both at the same time. We'll do the first engine start from the wing view, and then we'll do the second one from an external view. So here we go. ignition start, starting engine number 2. Back in the flight deck, we can see that we've got a veil showing, which means that we've got a good start on engine number 2. I'll wait until pushback completes just so that we can set the parking brake, and then we'll start engine number 1. Pushback working well, and you can see that our position has changed here, so we can live track where we are on the apron, which is super useful, especially at complex major international airports. Okay, the ground crew's asked us to set the parking brake, so parking brake is now set, and we'll start engine number 1. Once again, back in the flight deck, just in good timing as the ground crew have disconnected all the ground equipment, and we've got a veil showing on engine number 1. So 2 good engine starts. We'll go and give a little wave to the ground crew. They've got the bypass pin. Thank you very much indeed to them. And that means that we can go and complete our after start flow now. So APU bleed can go off. APU master switch can go off. We'll go and arm the ground spoilers. The engine start switch can go back to norm. We can go and select flaps 1 today. And you'll note this, that the trim has already been set for us. So you can see the magenta value here of 30.7, and we've actually got 30.7 set. This is done via the via arming the ground spoilers. So if I had like a change in load sheet value now or anything, and I needed a new trim value to be set, I would simply disarm the ground spoilers and then rearm the ground spoilers. We can also set the auto brake to RTO. And then the last thing we can do is a takeoff config test. This is going to catch a lot of people out, because a lot of people are going to press takeoff config and go, well, why isn't it working? We actually need to hold it for about 3 seconds. So we hold takeoff config for a couple of seconds, and there we go. That's all fine. The last thing we'll do is we'll go and do a before taxi checklist, or after start checklist, which is simply anti-ice. That's not required today. Everything else is normal, so we can go and select checklist complete, and it's already brought us back to the perf page. Okay, with everything complete, we now go and call air traffic control for taxi clearance. However, we're obviously flying offline today, so we can just get ourselves ready to go. So taxi light on, clear on the right and the left, parking brake is released. And one nice thing with this aircraft is that if you're very light, you can actually taxi on idle thrust. You don't need to add much power in. We're a little bit heavier today, so I'm going to add a bit of thrust in just to get us moving, but you shouldn't really need to use a lot of thrust on this aircraft to get yourself moving. I'm not completely familiar exactly what the best procedure is in terms of turning, you know, in the Boeing 777-300, for example. Oh my goodness, look at that view. You would kind of need to wait for the center line to be past this post here before you would start to turn. I don't know whether that's needed for the A350. I would imagine so. I guess it all depends on how far back the nose landing gear is from the pilot's positions. Whilst we taxi out though, let's go and enjoy some nice views. Okay, keeping a look around. Obviously, if I was flying with other sort of traffic, I'd be keeping an eye out to see if there's any other aircraft around here, but we're flying today. And let's slow the aircraft down. We shouldn't really be making 90-degree turns in, well, any aircraft above 10 knots or so, so we'll make sure we slow ourselves down. I'm just going to turn in line with that center. Oh my goodness, wow, look at the sun. Trying to keep some momentum in, about 5 knots, that's fast enough. You can see how really nice and smooth the display is there. Looking fine. Scenery, I've not really spoken about. This is the iniBuilds London Heathrow scenery. This isn't the actual, like, officially supported 2024 scenery either. This is actually the MSFS 2020 scenery, the latest version of that I've imported into here for 2024, and it seems to be working quite nicely for me. But there will be a brand new London Heathrow scenery from iniBuilds in the near future. Okay, as we're in a straight line now, I'm going to go and do a flight control check. So full right, neutral, full left, neutral, full up, neutral, and then full down. I would normally do a rudder check whilst I'm stationary. If I move the rudders now, you'll see we get a little bit of deflection. Obviously, whilst we're taxiing, most of the nose wheel steering being handled by the tiller. So you can see that moving. Now, look at this. My new favourite view in this aircraft, because of the way that the meshes are modelled and everything in the A350, it means that you can move your custom camera from outside the cabin and the cockpit and make yourself a tail cam. So have a look at this view. It looks beautiful. So she's taxiing along nicely with idle power at the moment. I've not got any thrust in with the thrust levers whatsoever, and we're at about 19 knots, looking good. You can see the sun starting to rise there, so it's getting pretty light in here. You can see the light starting to shine and cast off the ground there. A little bit distracting on this, so we'll keep an eye out on where we're going. I'll try and bring you some more lovely views of the aircraft though as we taxi for departure. Okay, we're not too far away from the end of the runway now, so let's go and make sure that we are set to go. We're going to have a look at the checklist, and we've got the before takeoff checklist. So flight controls, we've checked those on the taxi out. Flight instruments, they're checked. Briefing, well, you're the only ones I'm briefing to today, so we'll say that that's confirmed. V1, VR, and V2. Let me just make sure I get this taxi complete. This is the joys of being a solo pilot here. And the thrust rating, that's all set today. We know we've got those in place on the performance page. The squawk is set. And we've got takeoff no blue on the ECAM memo there. Takeoff runway 27 right is confirmed by both pilots. Cabin crew, we'll give them a little ding, I guess, let them know that we're ready for departure. So cabin crew have been advised. Packs off, we're not having the packs off today, we can leave those on. Takeoff runway is confirmed, and that's the checklist complete. So we're just approaching what would normally be the holding point here towards Alpha 4. We're going to continue on though, and we are ready to go. So I'm going to turn TA only off on the TCAS. We'd normally be checking to the right to make sure there's no other aircraft in the way. And we'll start to turn ourselves towards the runway. Going to enter an active runway now, so super important to get some more lighting on. So strobe lights on, landing lights can go on, taxi lights can go, or the nose lights can go to the takeoff position. And then we are ready to line up on runway 27 right at London Heathrow for our departure all the way to Nairobi. We'll follow this yellow line here just to give us a little bit more room. It taxis really nicely. It's effortless. Okay, making sure that we give ourselves plenty of room here. Probably not exactly how you do it, so please forgive me if this is incorrect, but hey. Look at the shadow. Wow. And again, considering this is an MSFS 2020 scenery, it's working very nicely. We go and put our chart back in place, ready for the departure. Make sure that we're lined up on the runway nice and centered, which we can of course do via the moving map display here. And we can stop here, and we'd now be waiting for takeoff clearance. We'll go and zoom out the map. Ready so that we can see the departure in its full form. And then we are ready to go. Let's get this show on the road. Let's fly to Nairobi. Okay, we've just been given takeoff clearance by air traffic control, so chrono can go on. We'll go and set about 50% of power. This is an N1 that you see at the top there. I believe that's 50% of power. I think it's about there that we set. Make sure we're stable, which we are. Release the toe brakes. Take off. Man flex 53 SRS runway. Auto thrust blue. Please forgive any stutters. 100 knots.
V1.
Rotate. Back we go. Positive climb. Gear up. Nav. Oh my goodness. Engine number 1 fail. It looks like we have hit a bird strike. So we're going to keep ourselves in the current thrust heading. We're going to pitch down on the nose. And I am going to go and open up the speed window. Sorry, open up the heading window here. So we've got thrusty, climb, open, climb, heading. Just got to watch the speed there. Keep our nose pitched down. And as you can see, we've got an engine failure on engine number 2. Sorry, engine number 1. So what we're going to concentrate on doing now is just making sure that we can get that speed up, because we're quite heavy, so we're going to struggle. So we're sitting at about 1,200 feet currently at the moment, and the speed's going to climb. To help us out, we're going to put the autopilot in so that our workload isn't quite as heavy here. And it's just going to follow the flight director to start to pitch up now. We're going to continue on this heading to make sure that we can just deal with the failure as needed. So as you can see, we've lost thrust in all of engine number 1. So engine number 1 fail. We need to land as soon as possible. Landing gear lever is up. Thrust lever, engine number 1 to idle. Okay, number 1, confirming to idle. Engine 1 master switch off. Confirming engine master switch 1 can go off. Engine number 1 switch is off. Engine 1 damaged. Yes, we've ingested a bird. So engine number 1 damaged. Yes, we'll tick the tick light on there. Engine 1 fire push button. Push. We'll go to the overhead panel, open up the guarded switch, and we'll push the fire button. After 7 seconds, 6 seconds, you can see that it's counting down. We've got the agents that we can discharge. We're just continuing on as we're going at the moment. We're still flap 1. There we go. Engine 1, the squib. There we go. We can discharge that. I believe, I don't know if you would need to wait maybe 30 seconds or so for that. Speed's starting to come up now, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to aim to level off at 3,000 feet if we can do so. Speed's starting to rise, so we'll go and retract the flap. So flap 0, and we're going to aim for green dot speed, which is about 220 knots. So let's go and set 220 knots in there. It's because we're pretty heavy that we're struggling to climb, and there we go. The flaps are now retracting. Okay, it's been about 30 seconds or so, and we'll go and discharge the other agent. So there's the squib push button at the top. And that's discharged, and we can clear that now. Okay, any other conditions to deal with? Wing anti-ice is off. Avoid icing conditions. If severe ice, flap lever landing 3 for landing. We don't need to worry about that today. So we can tick that, and then we can clear. Engine 1 shut down. So we need to monitor a fuel imbalance today, but we're going to be returning back, so that shouldn't be an issue. Go around thrust is toga only. That makes sense for us today. And on dry runway only, the landing distance is affected by 15%. Minus 15%. And clear everything else. Check all the others. So bleed, see if there's anything there that we need to look at. But we're just going to continue on. Check the hydraulics page, see if there's anything there. Nothing to note. And we're fine. So you can now see that we've got information. We've got in-op systems, engine 1A, generator 1A and 1B. BTV is no longer available. Go around soft is no longer available as well. APU bleed, do not use, avoid icing conditions, and if severe icing, land flap 3. Okay, with that, we're going to say that ATC's, we've dealt with the failure now, and we're going to say that ATC has told us that we can vector in for an approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn left, heading 180 degrees to turn to the south. Okay, whilst we're here, we're obviously now going to need to make sure that we get ourselves set up for a return back to London Heathrow. The best way to do that is to go and select ourselves ready for the new approach. So to do so, I'm going to go, let's have a look here. So we're going to go into the flight plan page, click new destination, and then we're going to type in here, we'll do it on the first officer's side, EGLL, for our new destination, because we're going to be returning back, and we'll insert that into there. We can go and select EGLL now, go and select a runway, so we'll land on 27 right, no sorry, 27 left we'll go, so they're departing on 27 right, so 27 left, and we're going to do the ILS approach. We won't go via a star or anything, we'll just insert that and execute it like so. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit here, make sure that we just keep our situational awareness in good order. Obviously, it's still going to have a little bit of the flight plan from before in place, but what we could do now is we could start to turn back on a downwind leg. Be a good point to advise the cabin crew at this point that obviously something horrific has gone wrong and that we're going to need to return back to London Heathrow. And you can see there's some information coming up here. Let's go and activate the approach mode once we put in some information about the arrival. We'll go and arm LS. Hopefully I've not forgotten anything. We're going to hold ourselves at green dot speed. We could probably keep flap 1 out here. I don't know if that would help with the thrust, but it seems to be handling itself quite nicely here. So we're turning ourselves on a downwind leg for an approach onto 27 right. Let's go to the approach page and we'll start to fill in some information. We're going to have a look at the METAR again. I'm not going to update it, we'll just leave it as is. So the wind's 250 degrees at 8 knots. 250 degrees. Enter at 8. The outside air temperature today is 14 degrees. Enter that, and the QNH 1015. Enter. What we've not done is we've not selected a minima, so we're going to have to go and have a look at that today now. So we'll go into the EFB and take a look at some arrival information.
2,500.
So ILS 27 left is what we're now going to be doing. So we'll select that chart, and the Cat 1 minima today is 280, which is what we'll select. We're not getting a very good view of the outside views at the moment, but it looks absolutely gorgeous out there, as hopefully you can see. So Barrow 2 minima is in place now. Activate approach, confirm, and now we've got the approach lined up for us. Let's go and take a look outside. So here we are flying on the downwind leg. You can see that we've just got one engine lit at the moment. We've got a little bit of a crab on. Great thing about the Airbus A350 is that it will automatically do the rudder trim for you. It takes quite a lot of work when you've got an engine failure to control the rudder trim. Not with the A350, but it looks absolutely gorgeous out here. Just a little bit worrying to see that one engine not running at all. Okay, so back into the flight deck we go. Let's start to get ourselves prepared now for what we need to do as if we were doing an approach here. It's looking like a nice clear day, so that's absolutely fine. We're on the downwind for an approach into 27 left. As you can already see just from the views that I showed you there, we've now selected flap 1. We've got the approach mode armed, we've got LS armed, and we can see the approach information. So 109.5, 109.5's in place there as well. We'll start to bring the speed back below the flap restriction for flap 1 and head towards 200 knots. We could go into managed speed here, head back towards S speed. You can see that it's asking for set green dot speed. Now, one thing that we've not really taken into account here is our weight. We are actually over the max landing weight of this aircraft. I believe the max landing weight is about 236 tons, if I remember correctly. Somebody will probably correct me if I'm not right. For the Dash 1000 variant, our gross weight is 246 tons. However, I've deemed that due to the severity of this incident, it's going to be important for us to return back to London Heathrow as soon as possible. So we are going to do an overweight landing. I'm sure there would be some sort of checklist for that, but we'll leave that for today. We're also going to arm the auto brake, and one thing that to know is that because of the in-op systems, we can't use BTV, so we're not going to use the brake to vacate system. However, the aircraft will automatically arm auto brake medium, which you can see is there in blue, auto brake medium, just by pushing the switch. So if for whatever reason you did forget to set up BTV, it's not the end of the world because it would automatically arm auto brake medium. Okay, final altitude to intercept the ILS into London Heathrow is 2,500 feet. I'm going to leave us at 3,000 because that should work quite nicely for us. You can see we're starting to head back over towards the city. I'm just gonna have to apologise for all my scenery popping, but it's just going to mean that we've got some nice FPS with that. And then we'll shortly start to turn ourselves back in for a one-engine overweight landing into London Heathrow. Okay, the engine really isn't liking us with all of this. Let's go and select flaps 2. You can see the rudder trim changing there actually, which is really cool. What I will do just to make sure that we're definitely going to hit the altitude restriction, even though we are below, we'll set 2,500 just in case we need to do so. And then we'll start to turn ourselves in, flying right over the city of London now. So we'll give ourselves a nice intercept heading. We've got a 27 knot crosswind, which is throwing us across a little bit as well. If we give ourselves a nice intercept heading, that should do for the approach, so about 30 degrees, and then we'll arm the approach, and we'll arm both autopilots today. So we've got land 3 dual armed. We're just coming in on the ILS now on the localizer. The glide slope we're below as well, so that's fine, and we've got about 11.5 miles to run. We're going to have a look outside. Not that I'd advise doing this in this situation. You can go and see the City of London. And there we go, we've got Lockstar. Okay, 9 miles to run. Let's start to bring back that speed. There's glide slope star, so we'll go and set the go around altitude, which I'm going to say is 3,000 today. I need to double check it on the actual chart. Yes, 3,000 is shown down there. Now we've got about 8 miles to run.
2,500.
Check. Let's go gear down. Flaps 3. A lovely 30-knot crosswind to make this even more difficult for me. Start to reduce the speed back to 160 knots now. And we can start to look at some more checklists. So after takeoff, we'll say that all of these are complete. I don't know if this is a good time for me to do this now. Maybe let's go to the checklist menu and we'll go for the landing checklist. So we're looking good for all of those things, aren't we? We'll just move ourselves off of that just because we're limited on time now with only 5 miles to run. All the lights are still on. We'll select flaps full. And then we'll go speed manage to bring us back for our approach speed today. So landing no blue on the ECAM memo. Everything is ready for our approach now. With 4.5 miles to touchdown. Okay, plan once we land. 1,000 feet is checked. We're stable, visual. Plan once we land is to stay on the runway. We're not going to try to vacate. We're very heavy. And we've got an engine failure. So, nice crosswind, overweight, 1 engine landing. If I mess this one up, don't shout at me in the comment section. Autopilot's disconnected. This aircraft is very nimble.
500.
Easily find yourself getting out of sorts, as I've almost done here. The wind's pushing us about a little bit. We are getting blown all over the shop here. Let's see if we can continue. Let's try and keep it stable.
300. 100 above. 200. Minimum.
Continue. Spoilers. Reverses green. Auto brake medium. And there we are. We're slowly coming to a stop. 60 knots. We'll go manual brakes now. Auto brake off. Stow the reversers. And we'll come to a stop on the runway. Okay, let's set the parking brake in place now. And there we are. We've successfully brought our aircraft back into land. Not my finest landing, I'll fully admit. But we made it in safely, and that is what counts today. So there we go. An overweight, 1-engine, crosswind landing back into London Heathrow in the iniBuilds A350. Folks, I hope you enjoyed that one. Something a bit different. I'm sorry we didn't make it all the way down to Nairobi, but I just wanted to showcase what you can do in this aircraft. Of course, what we did during that incident there was we went to the situations page and we activated the bird strike scenario. So if you want to test those things out, you can do so. I'm sure I didn't do everything perfectly or by the books there, but hey, it was all a bit of fun, and as I say, it just goes to show the complexity of this aircraft. There'll be plenty more footage of me streaming this aircraft here on my YouTube channel as well as Twitch as well, if you do want to come and watch me doing some proper flights and hopefully a little bit better with a landing than that one. For now though, I hope you enjoyed the video. Big thanks to iniBuilds for sending across this absolutely incredible aircraft for me to check out early, and we'll see you for more flying fun soon. Thanks folks.